Take two.
Hello, thank you for joining us today as we talk about the product mindset. This call is to talk about how you can make a practical transformation from a product follower to a product leader. There are many different facets that create the product mindset within an organization. We're going to review those with you initially, and then we have a great panel discussion afterwards where you can actually talk to some of the experts within the industry on how they've created the product mindset within their organization.
Hi, I'm Keith Klunt. I'm a solution architect in Slalom's Denver office. I work with product and engineering leaders who want to develop a product mindset, and I've led product and engineering organizations in several industries, including travel, financial services, and e-commerce.
Yeah, and I'm Thomas Bella, and I am also with Slalom, and I'm in our business advisory practice, really specifically look at strategy and operations. I have been a part of a small business before that grew and was acquired, and have been in that space as well. So I can relate with many of the organizations and how it feels to be at the stage that you might be in your cycle in life with your organization. I want to first kind of start us out about the product mindset. There's 10 attributes that we have kind of identified that create the product mindset that will really demonstrate that you can be a leader within your industry or within your target market instead of a follower. And so our presentation today is going to go over that in a little bit more detail. And then, like I said, we will open it up to more discussion because I'm sure you'll have lots of questions on how you can actually apply these 10 different aspects of product mindset to your own organization.
So product management pain manifests itself in a number of ways. A lack of focus, failure to deliver, lack of transparency, falling behind the competition, failure to innovate. Companies do a lot of things to try to address those symptoms, the pain that they're feeling. They add layers, they create more meetings, they do more upfront planning to define requirements. They create more ways to track and report status. All of those things mask the true source of the pain, where adopting a product mindset gets you beyond symptom treatment.
And if you are hearing many of those things internally, you can probably guess that you're going to be hearing these types of comments from your customers. And I really do focus on the last two, and that, you know, the third one on here. A lot of times there's really smart things going on in an organization. They really understand how they can create some really great features, but it's not always the right features or what the customer is actually looking for. So you will hear them say, it doesn't feel like you're actually listening to me. And, you know, and then there's usually also, you know, go into some reliability issues. We've worked with organizations where many of their customers are several releases back because they're so afraid to upgrade. They don't want the system to crash. They don't want some of the bugs that are found within the new one. And they've learned how to like work around the bugs that are already in there. That's what happens when you hear those things internally. Those are the things that are happening externally for your customers.
Yeah, so we're talking about common symptoms, internal systems, things you might hear or witness, you know, your customers doing in their experience. This slide illustrates a couple familiar modes for product development where there's a lack of product mindset. So on one end, you've got the top-down command and control feature factory, where teams are told what to deliver, when to deliver it. It's sort of called a roadmap, but it's really just a calendar with feature delivery milestones. And people are output oriented. We're going to talk about being outcome oriented versus output oriented. On the other side of this, you have teams that are hard at work. They're doing a lot of things, but there's not a lot of transparency or accountability. and they leave people guessing, both internal and external stakeholders guessing about what's being done, why they're doing it, what they can expect. Again, a very output oriented focus versus outcomes.
Absolutely. So here are those 10 aspects that I had discussed a little bit earlier. We're going to go into a little bit of detail into each of these before we then open up to the panel discussion. So the first one, we're going to start out with strategy, vision, and OKRs.
Yeah, product vision tells the story of how your product uniquely solves real world problems for people. It should appeal both to your customers as well as internal stakeholders. Some examples. So Sonos says they want to fill every home with music. Instagram's vision is to capture and share the world's moments. Jeffrey Moore provides a good product vision template. It's just 6 lines where you identify your target customer, what their needs or pain might be, what your product category and a description of your product is and its unique benefits and selling points, and then contrasts it, uses the term unlike your competitor or the alternative method for achieving your customer's needs by defining what the main product differentiators are. Those are elements of a good product vision statement. Your strategy describes at a high level what and how the company plans to achieve its vision, what you plan to do to achieve that vision. And your product strategy informs your marketing strategy, your pricing strategy, and your sales strategy. It helps create cohesion among those different functional strategies. And finally, OKRs are a powerful tool for creating alignment and focus. So translating your vision and your strategy into near-term objectives and key results. OKRs at the high level, strategic OKRs, can be decomposed down to the team level and allow the teams to define for themselves what their objectives and key results, how they're going to measure outcomes and results that align to the high level strategy and help to achieve the vision.
Absolutely. And so when you have those, the OKRs, kind of the next place that we tend to move towards is really understanding the market realities and the opportunities. Many in this space struggle because it's really about the job your customer does. It's understanding their full scope. Not just worrying about, hey, you know, as an example, you know, if you make an app that helps with HR benefits, but understanding that many of your customers might also have payroll, they might have all of these other. So really understand your customer and everything that's impacting your customer. You know, understand what others are doing in your space, even if it doesn't exactly touch on what your product is. Understand how that might affect it or how others are playing within that market. And these are all things that you can only get an answer from the market. You can't make these things up. You really have to go out there and experience. And we'll talk a little bit more about, you know, discovery, but really then understand your market. Once you know where your strategy is, when your vision is, it's really important to then incorporate what the market is doing, what your customers are doing, and thinking just more than just about your job, but really about their experience.
So within that market you've defined, getting a very clear picture and representing for all your stakeholders what your customer problems are, focusing on the experience that they want to have and that you want to provide them as you provide a solution to those problems, and defining what your customer defines as value, understanding what your customer's definition of value is. Some useful tools to do this include customer personas, so a one-page description of your target customers and relevant attributes of their world and what their problems are and what they're doing to solve them and what constraints they live within. A set of customer personas speaks or can create that shared understanding of who we're talking about across the organization. Customer personas can be then used in a value proposition canvas. So in a value proposition canvas, you define your customers' jobs to be done, what represents to them gains and pains in their world, and then allows you to correlate what your product offers in terms of offering solutions for their jobs to be done, how they can realize the gains that are important to them, and address or alleviate the pains they're feeling in trying to accomplish their job to be done. And finally, a lean canvas is a great one-page document that all of that information about your customer, their problems, the market opportunity, your proposed solution, and metrics can all be captured in a lean canvas in a way that is really, again, much more effective for sharing information, validating information among stakeholders. It's a much more effective solution than, say, a narrative business plan or a lengthy PowerPoint deck. It's literally just a one-page canvas that captures all of the relevant information that represents what you're trying to accomplish with your product in your market.
Clicking over. The other thing is being data-driven. Some of the most product-centric and product mindset organizations understand that their decisions have to be based on data, and it has to be based on outcomes over outputs. So as you know, Keith had been mentioning before about roadmaps just being a glorified calendar. You know, a lot of the things that we look at in here is outcome-based roadmaps. You know, where instead of writing what feature you are going to do in which quarter, you really want to use things like SMART goals to define what the feature is going to be doing and what customer behavior that is going to be changing. So, you know, a streaming media company, they want to see more people spend time on their app. That's really what you want to be measuring towards. You don't want to just say, oh, I think they'll spend more time because we add XYZ, or we offer it in just this different language. So all of a sudden people are going to use it more. No, you really want to use very good SMART goals. So they've got to be specific, they've got to be measurable, they've got to be attainable, and they have to be relevant, and they have to be time-based. And so if you look at, we are going to do X, or we are going to change customers' behavior from X to Y by this date, that's by maybe providing this type of feature, then the team is aligned and understands what's the measurement of success, what are the outcomes you are trying to go towards, instead of just feeling like they're doing outputs of different features. You know, telemetry is in this quarter, and then the next quarter it's you know, it's in Japanese, and they're like, where is all of this coming from? You know, this doesn't make sense to me. Why are we moving from here to here? We haven't even validated what happened before. So you know, being data driven and focusing on those outcomes is really important for that product mindset.
Yeah, so for testing and validating hypotheses, nothing beats getting out of the building and meeting with your customer face to face. There's no substitute for conversations with your customer. The best place to have those conversations, well, conditions permitting, is where the customer lives and works. If you've got a consumer product, being in the home or the place where your customer lives and experiencing with the customer all the distractions, all the constraints, all the realities of their environment, whether it be, you know, limits on bandwidth, you know, family, roommates, pets, whatever, noise, whatever it might be, you know, understanding how they, you know, what they're experiencing as you're asking them to experience your solution, your application. If it's a business application, an enterprise application, it's understanding the workplace, which today is more and more the same as the living place. So really understanding, you know, and which actually is really, really more relevant or more important now than ever to understand if your business users are in their living space while they're using a business application, they're in a different place than maybe you thought of them. They're not in in an office with other people beside them doing work. They're not in an environment where everyone's in kind of productivity mode. There are different distractions when they're working from home than when they're in an office. So one of the great tools for getting direct feedback from a customer is a design sprint. We like to use design sprints as a way, in a very short, focused time frame, 5 days, to go from an idea, a concept, all the way to having conversations with actual customers, putting a prototype or working software in front of them and getting their real-time feedback and watching them, not just asking and having a conversation about it, but witnessing and watching what's going on as they interact with this feature, this component, this service that you've created for them. And you actually can get a lot of indications of patterns from even just a few customer interactions. As few as 5 customer interviews or interactions can start to reveal some patterns that provide you good learning and feedback on your hypothesis, on the thing that you're trying to test out with the feature or the service that you're providing. I'll just add one caution here, that if you're building a SaaS product and you haven't done kind of the foundation work on a vision and strategy and a clear value proposition, your interactions with your customers can actually just feed this long list of feature requests that don't give you a good, you haven't created the good kind of filter or the way to evaluate and prioritize what your customer is telling you if you're lacking the vision and strategy that you want to have with a product at first. And I think we've all experienced products that are just filled with random features and excess configurations because someone at some point suggested that this thing might be a good idea, and without a clear vision for what we were trying to accomplish with our product and our solution, and we just dump every good idea into it and end up creating much more harm than good in a bloated piece of software.
So as Keith was starting to go towards, I mean, it's really about connecting that strategy to the execution. And so perfect segue into this aspect and exactly what he was saying, that if you don't do that, if you don't have that clear strategy, clear vision, all of that clarity going in, it will catch you off guard. You will get customers who are just asking for features. But when you want to start talking about their customer behavior, you can connect that strategy to the execution a lot better, and everybody else is going to be able to kind of connect that a lot better.
The question that comes up all the time is, how should we organize? Okay, if we're trying to achieve these great product outcomes, if we're trying to, get this focus on our customers and do all these other good things, well, what's the right way to organize? The answer is, it depends. But a principle that should drive the decision on organization is optimizing for team-based value delivery. So whether you call your teams pods or squads or teams, the best product organizations optimize for the product team as the primary unit for value delivery. And a product team optimized for value delivery includes members from all functional areas. So a product team includes, of course, product, UX, marketing, representation, software, QA engineering, analytics, and operations. That squad or that group of people with a focus on delivering what is their product focus within a platform, what's been determined as their feature set or product focus, can achieve all of the goodness of what we're talking about with product mindset. And this is a contrast with what a lot of organizations have, which is a matrix or project-oriented mode, where they, in the words of Mick Kirsten, who wrote the Project to Product book, he talks about this project-oriented approach, bringing people to work as opposed to bringing work to people. And bringing people to work, or that project approach, just isn't well suited for the kind of knowledge work that software development, software delivery requires. A focused, dedicated, semi-autonomous product team that is spending time together, working through problems, understanding the data, continuing to iterate on the solution, running A/B tests and learning from, both customer interviews and from what the data and telemetry is telling them, are going to, over the long term, be much more effective and much more productive at delivering high quality solutions that provide value to your customers.
So when you take the customer focus that we've been talking about, and when you do better discovery, you're able to get feedback back to the team and back to your organization faster. And so that's why, creating all of these things actually works a lot better with Agile delivery. And it's because you then become more nimble in small a Agile as a product team or as an engineering team, which then makes you better at the big A Agile, which set releases, continuously delivering value to your customer. A lot of those big Agile principles are really then accelerated when you do this model, when you have that really good, client discovery and your client focus and your customer focus. You're getting feedback from them within weeks instead of how many times you'll see. You'll get it in months, maybe even never get it if you're not just going out there. But you learn, you adjust, or what you're doing, or you invest where you have started seeing success, where you've started seeing those outcomes start to materialize with the different features and things that you're building with the product. Then okay, let's keep investing here. Let's keep going till we hit that goal that we're after. So it's helping everybody move much more closer to the outcomes as you hear. If you were going to take just probably a word map of everything we're saying, I think outcomes would probably be one of the biggest things that you'd see. It really does help with your delivery in being that more agile organization that we all want to be, and continuously delivering that high value and great products to our customers.
And then one of the results of everything we've been talking about is the team is able to generate for again, the team itself, as well as for lateral stakeholders in other functional areas and stakeholders upline, this very relevant, actionable, information-rich communication. A lot, so much of the standard communication in an organization really is just kind of noise. It's just standard check boxes on certain kind of project reports. Again, more output-oriented than outcome-oriented, more kind of rear view mirror, here's where we've been view, as opposed to here's where we're going and here's what we've learned. And they're not actionable. Those standard reports don't give me as a product manager and my team and others something to do about what we're reporting. So going all the way back to what we started with, OKRs, defining at the strategic level what the product and company is trying to achieve, and the team developing at their level a set of objectives and key results that they're measuring on. Our reporting should be on those, are achieving those objectives and how well we're doing in achieving those objectives and the key results. One of the concepts we like is a North Star metric. So beyond a standard, say a typical daily active user or monthly active user metric, like enriching daily active users with the specific things you expect someone to do on your platform or with your product, not just that they logged in or how much time they were logged in or how frequently they logged in, but what value-added activities were they performing? Were they doing the things you intend them to do to show evidence that they're getting value from your software? Logging in by itself isn't a very informative metric.
Yeah. So once again, the product mindset, it promotes this learning. to be able to innovate and to be able to pivot when things aren't the results that you were looking for aren't maybe happening. So yeah, maybe maybe you did put a metric around downloads or times that you opened up the app, or you logged in, but it's the engagement that really matters. So what did you learn about the engagement? What I like about creating the product mindset is that it promotes this learning, and it allows your teams to have the ability to innovate and pivot the way that they see in what they're hearing from the customers, and knowing that you've given them from maybe a leadership standpoint, or maybe your leadership has provided you with that North Star, where we're going, what are the objectives that we're going towards. And then here's where you take your customer experience, you take your teams that Keith was talking about, you say, okay, how are we going to achieve this goal? What can we do? How can we move that needle? How can we make it a more engaging product? How can we make them love every bit of what we do? And then when we find the right thing, when we try out things and whether they work or not, that's still things learned. You will release things that customers won't use. I think last year when we spoke at Denver Startup Week, is something like 70% of features missed the mark on their first release. It's going to happen, but that doesn't mean that isn't invaluable, that you can't learn from those experiences, and that the organization from really the leader level needs to be eager to even learn those things. Even if the feature didn't hit the mark, they should be eager and be like, yes, please give me that information. And then how are we going to course correct? How are we going to pivot so that we can develop the ongoing strategies and the ongoing OKRs to better fit the realities that we're working in. So, really it's the learning piece that I think sometimes gets me most excited, because if it's done correctly, if it has that leadership buy-in, that you're able to experiment and do opportunity trees, and figure out which one you want to go after and learn from that, whether it was successful or not. Your engineering teams appreciate that. They love being creative just as much as your product teams love solving customer problems, and your UX teams want the engagement that they're expecting. It's a really good way to create the synergies between those teams that we were talking about. And before I even go too much further on this, just on the last slide, that is the learnings and the innovate, then start that cycle all over again. So everything that you learned should be then feeding into the strategy, and it should be continuously going in the circle of what we were talking about. You continue to iterate, and that's really a center of excellence that we're talking about. So sorry, Keith, you probably want to wrap up a little.
That's great. I guess we're moving to the panel discussion now.
Yep, we'll move to the panel discussion. We'll have some questions for our panelists, and then obviously we're going to be welcoming any kind of questions from the crowd. And please feel free. We'll probably introduce ourselves again and introduce you to the panelists, and then use the chat functionality. I'll try to keep an eye on there and help navigate through this next section. So appreciate you, everyone, listening to what the product mindset is. Now let's get in and start working with how this could be applied to your organizations, or what questions you might have about the product mindset.
All right, thank you guys. It was a kind of fun little start there. Given this whole virtual Denver Startup Week, it was a little interesting. So we did try to, of course, record first, and you got to see our outtakes. We will be sending bloopers later. No, just joking. we're not going to send bloopers. But I am going to share a screen so that we can introduce some of our panelists that we have today, and then start talking. And let me know if you guys can see it. Keith, or any of you?
I'm not seeing a screen share, Thomas.
All right. Come on. All right. How are we looking now?
Yep. Now I see it.
Perfect. All right. Well, we've got a great group here to talk about the product mindset. We did want to give you at least the 10 that are, the 10 things that kind of make up the product mindset so that you had the background. But really what matters most is how do you apply it? How does it work? And so we are lucky enough to have a really great group here to talk about this. So I'm going to redo some introductions. I'm going to let Keith go just quickly, and then we'll just move left to right.
So I'm Keith Lunt, a solution architect with Slalom's Denver office.
Yep. Arjita.
Okay, I am Urjita Ghosh. I am the Director of Growth Engineering at Quizlet.
Hi, Elaine Yang. I've had various product manager roles in Colorado. Most recently was at Uber for almost 4 years. And then, did some work at Techstars, which, so I have a lot of exposure to the early startup stage, as well as sort of the 300 to 400 person company size as well. So happy to answer questions about product across all of those stages.
Yeah, so now that everyone has a little bit of background on the product mindset, we have one good question so far come up in the chat. Please send some more in there. We would love to see any more, and I'm pulling up the chat too so I can read over it. Please ask any of your questions you have about the product mindset in the chat, and we will get it over to our panelists. If you want to hear how companies like Quizlet are doing certain things, let us know, and or if you're struggling in a certain area of like measuring, following a product-based roadmap that is feature oriented instead of outcome oriented, like here's our chance to actually talk as a team and discuss how to actually apply these methodologies into your own place so that you can create a more aligned organization. So I think the first one, and Keith, I'm going to let you just expand a little bit on it, and then I was going to put it over to Arjita, was about dev and QA buy-in on the product mindset. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that and some of the issues you've seen and how product mindset can overcome that?
Sure. Yeah, this was a question that came in from Susanna Nilsson. And her question in the chat is, any advice on how to make sure that dev and QA align with product scope? The place I would start is by involving members of software engineering and QA engineering as early as possible on the product team, so that from the earliest conversations around product scope, product vision, what the MVP version of a product is, if that's the stage the product's in. So they're able to be part of those conversations and bring to those conversations technical feasibility and questions about certain use cases, certain user scenarios that QA engineers are really good at coming up with alternative scenarios to what a product manager and a software engineer might typically think of as kind of the common use case that they're thinking of. And then having those conversations, and an exercise even early in conceptual conversations is doing some whiteboarding, putting early prototypes, UI mockups, having discussing what if scenarios, and making sure that everyone has had the opportunity to externalize what it is they're thinking about when they're talking about product scope, and when they're talking about the users, and when they're talking about success criteria, rather than just sort of keeping it within their head and assuming that others are thinking the same way or understanding things the same way they are.
Yeah, just to add on that, I would say like working together is a key thing for a product mindset team. Like it's not just the product person's job. The engineer, QA, product, if they know why they are doing it. That is very important. That really motivates the engineers, QA, like they come up with a great solution, the technical feasibility, and they are kind of part of the process. So it's really, really important to have that kind of forum or the team or the space created in your process. Like we do, the grooming we call in our regular sprint, where product engineers, QA, all kind of talk about the implementation, why we are trying to do it, how are we kind of thinking we will be able to do it. So yeah, that's really important to work together and get that early conversation going.
The only thing I'd add there is just underscoring that one way to work together is also just to embed with each other. So I've been at a company where they had issues with QA and dev. And so they actually brought the QA team and embedded one QA person onto every squad, every development squad. And that drastically reduced frictions. At Uber, the most recent team that I was on, the devs would actually, we'd come together with the devs, the PMs, and the operations folks, and we'd do like a little mini sort of first pass QA, and we'd sit there and say, hey, what should we be looking for? We talked to the devs, and then the QA team would then go through all the sort of checks, and then would actually be sent to a broader team. But the first initial round of checks included everyone that was actually sort of working on the project and cared the most about it. I think we have a couple other questions.
Yeah, we're starting to get them in. I've got this one from Adam, just because we were on this kind of topic a little bit, but how do you, what tips do we have for getting engineers engaged with product metrics, or to help them to understand and see the impact of the work that they're producing? Anyone from the panel want to start out with that one, Arjita?
I can take it
Yeah.
because with my background in engineering, yeah, it is very important for engineers to see that. But I would say as a tool, something we would like to do, like as a product, they can share the metric and data of a particular delivery to the entire group, so that engineers know how they are impacting, how they are moving the metric. But we also encourage engineers to actually go deep dive into the data tool, so that they also know like which kind of metric is being impacted by this particular delivery. So I would say engineers know they have a lot of SQL or anything like that. They just need to go and understand the data, play with the data, so that they also know what product is seeing.
One other thing that I would add that I found helpful is when the sort of leads, that maybe it's the engineer manager or the product leads, go and talk to more senior leadership, and they come back with feedback, literally just sharing out a slide like, hey, this is the feedback we got. This is what senior leadership cared about. These are the questions they asked. And a lot of them will talk about the metrics. And so then that kind of gets the engineers thinking, oh, okay, they really care about this. And then, they're obviously very smart people. So they'll start their own wheels turning. And that can be very additive to the overall process in the product, much more so than the product manager sitting by themselves or any one person sitting by themselves.
Yeah, and I would add on to that, that when the metrics actually tied to the overall company and organizational goals, and when you want what needle you are moving with each of the features that you're going after, that helps them understand why they get the priority they do. A lot of the times, I would say a majority of us who are on the IT software side, we are agile, we do, sprint planning, we want our backlog groomed, we want it in priority. And, I've been with engineering teams many times when they're like, I don't know why this is a priority. Like, why did this become all of a sudden a priority when we have all of these other things to do, or we have all this tech debt that we need to get to, like why? So if you actually have the product mindset, and you are not having where the highest paid person's giving you their opinion of what you need to do, and you're actually allowing your teams to design and work towards a goal and giving them that North Star that we talked about, you're going to see better alignment with them. You're going to see better engagement with them. They're going to want to participate. They're going to understand exactly why you're doing what you're doing. And they feel more empowered to get their creative side out there. So that's the one thing that also the product mindset can really help with. All right, going to some other ones. Keith, you just posted one from Renee. Let's see. With regards to customer experience, many companies do a survey. How are we doing? There is a perception that 5s are the goal, but shouldn't the customer experience of 1 and 2 add more value to the product enhancement and product enhancements if experience is articulated?
Yeah, so my answer to that had to do with promoting learning and testing things in small increments, testing out our hypotheses about what features we can put into the product or service and how it will solve the customer's problem. And so doing something in a small increment in a test, perhaps an A/B test, perhaps a design sprint, end of design sprint interview, learning what doesn't work and learning that early is actually promoting the right kind of learning that are product mindset values.
Yep, which aligns really well with Agile principles, right? And so now product is going to be better aligned to the Agile principles that a lot of the organizations want to implement. Arjita, I know in one of our conversations, we talked a little bit about how Quizlet does their design sprints and how there's levels to engagement of this is just the initial one with the customer. You want to walk the team a little bit about how Quizlet does that. And then Elaine, I'll see if you've worked on some design sprints within any of those organizations, any insight you might be able to give in that.
Yeah, sure. So we have a way, like we generally do some project we define in a different tag, like whether it's a signal seeking project or investment or optimization infrastructure that way. So the example would be like, we don't know whether our users will like that feature. Like we have certain hypotheses. We just want to seek the signal from our market by really running quick A/B testing and really learning from our success or failure before we take the next step. And once we have that kind of result in, we are very data driven. So once we understand our data from the signal seeking, then we can decide that, okay, we are really having a great signal. Now we can transfer this project to the investment phase. And kind of tagging that initiative earlier, that keeps the entire team enough understanding, right? Probably as a designer, I don't need to spend a lot of time when the project is more in the signal seeking phase. Similar thing as engineers, we don't need to do the perfect coding, everything when there is a signal seeking tag going on. So I would say we kind of do that by leveling and setting the right expectation upfront, what the other team members should do to deliver that kind of feature to get the quick learning.
Yeah, I think just to add on to what Arjita was saying, I think there's lots of, it depends on the thing that you're trying to test. So I have one example that I kind of like to share, which is, we were rolling out something, we were rolling something out in the Uber app where we had a small subset of cars that were sort of taking imagery, and we're using it to augment our maps. But we were concerned that, there was going to be backlash from passengers thinking, hey, why is there a camera on this car that's coming to pick me up? And so we were able to really quickly just use in-app notification, sort of saying, would you like to cancel your trip? There's a camera, but it's completely anonymous, and, giving them an easy out. And then, we even did like fake camera, it wasn't even real, just the kind of simulated it. And then basically we're able to see essentially like 10 out of 10, nobody really cared. We additionally had, a tablet in the back seat so that they could answer a quick survey. We measured the amount of cancellations, and, very quickly within 2 weeks, and this wasn't, full driving all the time. It was just, we took shifts. And this also gave the developers a chance to be in the driver's seat and experience it, experience what it's actually like to be a driver. But within 2 weeks, and again, not around the clock, just in smaller shifts, we were able to very confidently feel that we could roll this product out. So, that's one example of the lightest weight possible way we could test. There's also lots of stuff. If you're fortunate enough to have a UX team that's kind of trained in how to sort of gain insights really quickly, there's lots of different ways to set up surveys, or even just, go and talk to people on the street. And it's just the type of way you question the folks that, like Keith said, you can get you can start to see patterns, with as few as 5-10 sort of quick interviews. But in terms of, so I think with Renee, she was sort of asking, there's that perception that 5s are the goal, but, 1s and 2s add more value to the product enhancement. I mean, I think there's, especially if you're a company that delivers an actual physical product, I've talked to companies that deliver a hardware product where they literally took all their 1s and reached out to all of those folks to figure out what that negative feedback was. And then they use that to prioritize, hey, we're seeing this so much, all the 1s basically are because of X reason. And so we're going to put that in the roadmap. So just wanted to add that on.
Yeah, that's so well said. Thank you, guys. Love that. And what stood out to me is getting customer feedback in 2 weeks. I mean, I don't know if that's stood out to anybody else, but wow, like, I've been with many organizations that they don't get the product team doesn't get feedback from customers until 2 releases later, and so amazing job over there with Uber. That's just amazing to hear. Susanna also had another good question about advice on tools that we recommend creating product training for customer-facing teams. So any kind of tools that that anybody's used for customer-facing, feedback and working with them. And I'll open that one up. It looks like Elaine, you got that one.
I'm not sure if this is a tool, but one thing that I've seen that's been successful is I worked with a product that was kind of technical, sort of like this ad platform. And we had a product marketing team that sat and was embedded with the product team. And the product marketing team did a phenomenal job of kind of reaching out to the sales team and the customer account team to kind of do that product training. And I think just having that in-person to person training, in this case, it wasn't necessarily, it was a tool. It was, every feature that went out was, there was a write-up about it. There was a why it's important, here's how you might want to sell it. And then there was, a session where there could be some Q&A that was interactive between the folks that were customer facing and the product marketing team. But the product marketing team was very much embedded with the product team.
One thing I will add also, like particularly for the customer facing team, again, I don't know if there is a particular tool, but it's very important to understand your customer, really to understand what actually they want. So we do a lot of user research, and we also share that with our team, like what's their experience using our product. So all that kind of trying to build the customer empathy within the team, I think that works. We kind of celebrate our user spotlight in our all hands meeting. So really kind of bringing up that mentality, that empathy to everyone, so that we kind of become a customer focused team.
Yeah, and I've actually even been able to present out roadmaps, especially when they're outcome-based roadmaps, and saying, specifically to, hey, we're trying to engage better in this area. This is our goal. How do we reach there with you? How do you get there and have that open and honest dialogue with that customer, saying, here's what we're trying to do. This is the qualitative thing that we're trying to make your experience feel like. What does it look like? How do you actually use the tool? And when you're there, use the tool in front of them. It's quite amazing. I worked with a data analytics company that provided data analytical software. And it was amazing to watch both sales engineers and product teams get in front of a customer and really try to actually solve their problem in the product. And it was like, wow, super insightful. And so we were able to see how many steps they had to go through. UX was eating it up because the interface, it was really one of those cool things that, you can only get from being in front of your customers, which, you'll hear us continually keep on saying that. All right, gonna go to a couple more. And I know we're running, we got about 5 minutes left. So I'm actually gonna try to get one more question in for the team. And let's see, we got quite a bit. Let's, ways to get customer outreach, any way to get better responses for opting in, and do you recommend incentives? So I'm actually gonna put Keith on the spot for this one first, and then let anybody else chime in on this.
Yeah, so I was just saying, when I have customers, so this depends on the stage you're at as a company. If you're early startup and you're just trying to get some of your early customers, you might have to offer some incentive. But I've often found that you can even do a $5 coffee gift card. You don't necessarily have to compensate someone for the actual time that they might spend with you in a survey. Once I've got customers though, I really want to make sure they know how much I appreciate their engagement and how valuable their input is. And I look for those who are as passionate as we are about the problem space and the solution we're providing. And they see the opportunity to actually enhance that solution. And they see the opportunity to give us feedback that's going to be incorporated in the product. And in those cases, I've not seen a need for incentives. It becomes this really collaborative relationship between us providing the product and the solution and the customer getting the value from it and wanting it to be the best it can be.
Great. All right. So we're coming just to about time. Any last questions? Oh, there was one Q&A. We'll get one more. I think we can sneak one more in. I did put up QR codes. If you have your cameras, your smartphone, you can connect with any of us via LinkedIn. And we would love to be able to continue this conversations or any questions you might have. We are product-minded people. We love talking shop. It's been a fun month of us four working together. Just some of the conversations have been just amazing. And so let's see, do you have any tips for engineering to be engaged? Oh, we got that one.
I think there's one from Emily. It says, how long did it take for you to feel comfortable enough with product management to start taking the lead on products? Or rather, how long did it take for you to understand and adopt the product mindset?
Awesome. Thanks, Elaine, for catching that one. I missed that one. Do you want to take that first?
I can take like a super quick stab. I'd say like, this might sound really obvious, but I feel like when I first started in product, especially if you're at a larger organization, you kind of look around, you're like, wow, how are you going to tell everyone, what the roadmap should be and how should you figure out what is the most valuable thing? It seemed very daunting to me. And this is where it might sound a little obvious. I think like if you just take a step back and like I was chatting with Thomas about this, like my view on product management is kind of like the common sense job. You know, like all that stuff is really important if you're going to be successful in launch and people are going to buy your stuff and want to use it. And so if the product manager doesn't do it, someone else will do it. And so taking a step back and just like almost imagining like, okay, forget that you're in this giant big company. Let's just pretend that it's your own startup. What common sense things would you want to do to feel comfortable taking that lead on that product? You know, it's like, oh, well, we don't really know what the customer really wants. Okay, then all of that stuff that we talked about like customer discovery will then be into action. And then you can, again, take a step back, common sense. Okay, if it was small and scrappy, what would I do? And then kind of work from there. So.
I agree with that. Keith, anything from your side in your history and product?
I hate to say it this way, but sometimes you fake it till you make it. If you're new in a product manager role and you don't know all the answers, it's this combination between humility, like acknowledging, well, no, I don't know all the answers. But on the other hand, you're the authority. Act like you know as much as you possibly can, push the limit, push the edge of your knowledge and experience, and then be willing and humble enough to learn. It's not egotistical. It's like, okay, if I'm wrong or if I need to learn something, I'm open to it.
Can't agree more. All right. I think we are just coming up to the time. It's 3 o'clock. Like I said, please connect with any of us via LinkedIn. Would love to continue this conversation with anybody. And I hope you all were able to, get some good information out of this. And I want to just really thank our panelists. You did an amazing job, and I'm so thankful to have been able to work with you on this and get your insight. It's been really a pleasure working with you guys. All right.
Thank you.
Take care. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks.